We watch the news. We see war, disease, poverty, man against man. We see billions of poor people displaced by the power brokers. We see the super rich getting richer. Many simply see the news. They don't understand, or even try to. They don't know the bigger picture, the truth about what is really happening out there. The truth is, what happens out there affects us all. And all of those world events are happening not by chance, but by design. All of our lives are being affected by just a few men. Those men are members of an elite group. Their ancestors plotted and schemed just as they do today. Their goals are short and long term. They affect all levels of society. Lawmakers and enforcers, religious and political leaders, movie makers and media moguls, industrial giants and pharmaceutical murderers. All around the world they work, plotting and scheming, scheming and plotting. Nobody dares to speak out against them. Most don't even know. Through clever manipulation, marketing, propaganda and force, they control the world. These are not the people you're thinking of. These are not always the politicians, who are often pawns themselves. These people are members of a long line, a golden thread through history that stretches back thousands of years and can be traced through their own bloodline. We have given them many names: Illuminati, New World Order, Priory of Zion, and more. What they do and who they are is such a huge secret that any means is used to keep them safe. I have been at the heart of one such group and seen how they mock the world outside. Welcome to the world of a very real and powerful secret society. Almost everybody will have heard of the New World Order. But who understands what it really is? It's no great secret. It's been in numerous movies. Most see it as some kind of grand order of people in power plotting world domination and the development of a utopian world. This belief has been fostered and spread as if it were not such a bad thing. The truth is, a great many people want to join. Slowly, over a long period of time, this secretive group will introduce methods to take over the world, to replace sovereign states and governments. Could it really be true that such men conspire with each other across the world and throughout time? The answer is yes, and it is in fact a natural state. All men conspire, from children in the playground to politicians behind the scenes. They all lay plans for their own ends, for survival. Whether political, religious or financial, all elements are controlled. From my own brief sight into this world, I noticed that members of this particular order were from across the spectrum. A princess, a Hollywood star, a judge, a bishop and an author were just a selection of the high and mighty. And one thing struck me. They all had a bloodline claim to their roles and positions in the group. Even my own palm was checked for a special line which would indicate my right to be a member. I had the line, I had the ancestors, but I did not have the will to join. Have you ever wondered why our political leaders always seem to emerge from the same universities? Why those same institutions also give us the leading lights of our military? Hundreds of years ago, these universities were set up by the people in power to ensure the stability of the nations, to foster and grow like-minded people, to give knowledge and truth to members of the elite bloodlines of the world. Choose a name, almost any name from the world of politics, and you will find that their family lines spread out into other influential fields, such as the media. Because of the control of the media, the voices raised against them are almost never heard, or even worse, are stigmatized. They are made to look like cranks. They are given names such as Christian fundamentalists, or anti-government conspiracy freaks. But you don't need to be a Christian or a freak to realize that the people in power are in it for themselves. But something has been working on the mindset of the people. The internet has been a hotbed of information gathering and dissemination. This is one reason that the NSA and other secret services are illegally monitoring your every word and deed. Many in the world now see beyond the news we are fed. They reject the official story about 9/11. They know there was more to the story of the death of Princess Diana. They realize that there are massive cover-ups over the misdemeanors of the rich and powerful. In fact, the conspiracy theories became so powerful among ordinary people that political scientists became concerned about possible mass hysteria, and so further controls of the people were applied. Every level of our lives are now controlled by those in power. From the moment we are born, we are given a number, fed into a machine, and monitored. Our health is checked, recorded, and our daily lives become data in a vast computer that spews out statistics for control. We are fed information, news, entertainment from birth. Propaganda manipulating our every thought. In Russia, everything is the fault of the Americans, and in America, it's all the fault of the Red Peril. False borders, created and marked upon maps by our illustrious leaders, keep us always against our brothers just a few miles away. Go to university and build up your debt. Buy a house and tie yourself into the bank for 25 years. Pay your taxes to get your bins emptied. Look like this to be accepted in your society. Eat this filth we have repackaged, painted and scented for you. Trust us. We are your leaders. The term New World Order is not something created in the mind of a conspiracy theorist. It is in fact something that has been used by a great many as an idealistic concept of the future of mankind. Woodrow Wilson and Winston Churchill both used it during the last century as a statement that the world was about to enter a new phase. The world had just been through a massive upheaval. From 1914 to 1945, a grand repositioning of powers was fostered, and we called them World War I and II. In effect, this was a movement of sovereign states. A period when the old, stale empires such as Great Britain were reduced to rubble and rendered bankrupt. It was part of a grand sacrifice for the great good of the coming New World Order. It was also used to grow the world's most powerful commercial business to such levels that it staggers belief. The arms industry. The three biggest arms industries in the world are all in the USA, the very country that came off best following both world wars. Every year, these three companies alone rake in over $100 billion. They employ 500,000 people. When you create war, you sacrifice people, but you make a fortune, not just from the arms, but from medical supplies. This then feeds the other huge industry on the planet, chemicals. Now, as world trade globalizes, so too do the arms and chemical industries. Huge percentages of emerging nations' budgets are spent on arms and medical supplies. And this often brings civil wars, which fosters that growth. After the First World War, a League of Nations was set up to bring countries together. It failed. After the Second World War, the title was changed to United Nations, and trillions of dollars now pass through this organization, which has amazing power. Like a nation itself, it can go to war, raise taxes, and enforce laws. And it can do this at the whim of just a few people. The same people that have always been in power. Add into this the organization we call NATO, and we have yet more incredible power in the hands of just a few. This is conspiring. This is an example of how people get together, decide on a future, and put a plan of action into place to ensure their preferred outcome. And none of this was done by anybody new. All the real powerful decisions were made by people whose ancestors and relatives have always done so. It was reported to us by media controlled by them. Now, years later, the world is controlled by centralized banks, trade organizations, law courts, religious leaders, and more. All of these run through the UN, through the same people. And all of these are led by people spawned and fostered in the same universities from the same stock. They also maintain a balance of power in favor of the US. Nobody argued with any of these changes, partly because very few people understood them, partly because those in power owned the media, but mostly because nobody ever wanted to go back to a situation like the World War ever again. So who designed the UN? In truth, it was the ones with real power, the American bankers who had profited immensely from war. As the system stands today, evolution and capitalism states that simply, the most powerful businesses are the fittest of the species, and will only remain so while there is war or threat of war. The idea we have been sold, that the UN brings peace to the world, is a farce and a lie. Created, run, and utilized by powerful self-enriching warmongering businesses that sell us bullets and antibiotics. One of the biggest bankers in the world is owned by the infamous Rothschilds, who have been implicated again and again in conspiracies the world over. The Royal Head of State of the United Kingdom banks there. This same royal head also owns stakes in the world's biggest oil company, power companies, uranium mining companies, chemical companies, and retail, amongst others. The Secret Service give a weekly briefing to this head of state, and not to the resident Prime Minister. 500 military advisors in over 30 countries report directly to this person, whose offspring attend the same universities as the power brokers of the world. Grand titles and annual awards are dished out to all those doing a good job for the cause. And almost every order, secret or otherwise, is patronized by them. Pull a thread with the British royal family and you unravel a massive web that reaches around the globe in every industry, in every way. Now, who do we think killed Diana to shut her up? As ever with conspiracy theories, we enter a world of confusion. Out here in the world that only sees small snippets of the truth, all manners of assumptions are made. Depending on your own upbringing and background, it depends on your point of view. A great many Muslims see the capital West as corrupt and controlled, whereas Christians see Islam as trying to take over the world. During the middle of the last century, Christian conspiracy theorists of the US started pointing fingers at almost everybody. Freemasons, Illuminati, and even the Jews. They were the threat of an international communist conspiracy, what they called godless communism. The governments of the West didn't mind too much. The battle against communism was in fact something they wanted to foster. This red menace became a demonized focus. The commies were everywhere, and even the great Charlie Chaplin was accused of conspiring against the good old US of A. The beauty of this whole post-war anti-communism approach was that it actually played right into the hands of the capitalists. The same bankers and oil tycoons that wanted us to earn and spend. Communism was evil. It was out to get us. Fight communism by digging yourself a grave even deeper into the capitalist system. Be a good American and buy more than you need. And yet, even though there is this supposed international hatred between East and West, Muslim and Christian, communist and capitalist, the fact remains that all along, the leaders, thinkers and businessmen of all sides meet regularly, strike deals, buy each other's companies, trade and toy with us like lab rats. All elected politicians are only in power for a short period of time. The real power are those people behind the scenes, the ones who never change, the ones whose family lines can be traced back down that golden thread and into the heart of secret orders and cabals. The civil servants of the world have more power than their puppet politicians, and it is these same people that hold regular meetings with counterparts across the world. Whether business, religion, royalty or politics, it does not matter. All are methods of control, and all are controlled by an elite few. The puppets of these men with real power mostly have no idea that they are being controlled. Ego is a wonderful tool to manipulate, whether somebody wishes to be a media star or the next president. Words, like songs, are written for them, and they sing along to the merry tune. President George Bush gave an infamous speech in 1990. It was a vision of the coming utopia now that the Red Menace had gone. Here's what he said. "Until now, the world we've known has been a world divided. A world of barbed wire and concrete block, conflict and cold war. Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order. In the words of Winston Churchill, a world order in which the principles of justice and fair play protect the weak against the strong. A world where the United Nations, freed from Cold War stalemate, is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders. A world in which freedom and respect for human rights finds a home among all nations." It seemed to many that